The truth just leaked, and it is absolutely sickening as a wild new report has just dropped surrounding the Steelers' next head coach that not only has fans very fired up, but while all eyes are on Chris Shula and fans are excited about that, the truth just leaked, and it is not what fans thought. And quite frankly, folks, this is way worse than we could have ever imagined. We're going to break that down and discuss what it means going forward, as well as a ton of other updates. You're going to want to stay tuned to the very end of this video, ladies and gentlemen, because there is a lot to go over today, specifically surrounding both the Steelers' head coaching search and even some Aaron Rodgers updates. It's a wild one. But before we get into it, a quick thank you for all your guys' support. You've been absolute beasts, folks. I want to dive right into the video today because it is not one that I was hoping to kind of be making here. And there was a lot of reports this morning about who their next head coach is going to be. Chris Shula. I've been making videos. I had one yesterday on Chris Shula. Momentum was picking up there. And then Connor Hughes, a very reputable NFL insider for the Jets and Giants, came out and said, I remember talking to Aaron Rodgers in the locker room towards the end of his tenure with the Jets. And he mentioned that wherever Mike McCarthy ends up is a potential landing spot for where Aaron Rodgers lands up. And this last sentence is one that fans can hopefully close their eyes here. Sure sounds like McCarthy is headed to the Steelers. Wonder if that gets Rodgers back for another year. So, folks, not only are we talking about now the potential of Aaron Rodgers returning, which I'm not saying is the end of the world, the worst thing that could have happened, but I obviously want to have a fresh start at quarterback, whether that be a draft pick, whether that be a trade, or potentially even Will Howard, though I'm not super high on necessarily that for next year. This sentence here from a reporter sure sounds like Mike McCarthy is headed to the Steelers, and this is nightmare fuel. And there's a brand new report I'm going to dive into in a minute as well from Tom Pelissero. But before we get into it, folks, I do want to remind you guys that this video is brought to you by Kalshi, and if you download it using the link below and use code DIGESTNFL, you get $20 when you trade your first 100. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States. We're on their platform. You can trade yes or no on real-life events, sports, elections, news, and pretty much anything and everything. And whether you're in California, whether you're in Texas, or anywhere else across the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. And for us sports fans out there, you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, or player performances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. And folks, you can even trade on the Steelers' next head coach, and Mike McCarthy is soaring up. You can see in the chart there, it's up to 33% chance. So if you trade yes on the Steelers' next head coach being Mike McCarthy, and they do end up hiring the Steelers, that is, Mike McCarthy, you'll win $278. It's generally a smarter way to use your sports or news knowledge, and you can close positions whenever you want. So make sure to check out the link down below in the description, and don't forget to use code DIGESTNFL to get your $20 bonus. And thank you once again to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. And folks, let's get back to the news now. And of course, this came out very, very recently, and fans, including myself, are very concerned. But you can see here from John Ledyard, nightmare fuel, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we're looking at a potential world where they miss out on Chris Shula, they miss out on Nathan Scheelhaas, and they go for Mike McCarthy, and then Aaron Rodgers potentially returns. Now, we can see here from Tom Pelissero, Super Bowl winning head coach Mike McCarthy will interview Wednesday with the Steelers per sources. He was a candidate for the Titans job, which he withdrew himself for because he's that confident, potentially at least, in joining the Steelers. And of course, ultimately Robert Saleh joined the Titans. He's focused on Pittsburgh, where he's considered a strong candidate. Now, there's a couple different things to go over here. There's a world where this is all just kind of leverage being played, and that because, and I mentioned this in yesterday's video, because of the fact that Mike McCarthy has ties with Omar Khan, had ties with Mike Tomlin, and even has ties with the Steelers' current assistant GM, there could just be a play here to where making it look like he was a finalized deal with the Steelers, or at least as a finalist, and then he goes signs elsewhere, so that way it looks better on his, I guess, quote unquote resume, especially with the way his tenure in Dallas went. Or there's a realistic chance, and the probably more likely chance, that they are actually pursuing Mike McCarthy, because they will have an interview on Wednesday, and I'll dive into how the kind of interviews are scheduled here. You do have one with Chris Shula, who's of course in the middle of a playoff run. It is not ideal. Now, at the same time, you can see here from Jack Sperry, so we've gotten 3 separate reports over the last 24 hours that Shula, Flores, and McCarthy are all strong candidates for the Pittsburgh job. That tells me that all 3 men really want the job, and they have their agents pushing for them to gain traction in the media narrative. So, obviously, out of these, the order for me is Shula, Flores, and Mike McCarthy in that order. I'm not very high on Mike McCarthy in general. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. And I'm also not super high on having Aaron Rodgers return. So that's why it's obviously a sickening truth to me, because Chris Shula is, in my eyes, such a better candidate for the head coaching position. He can pick his OC. Obviously, ideally, it's Nathan Scheelhaas. But the interview is tomorrow. And again, Tom Pelissero, a very well-renowned reporter and insider, said that he is considered, McCarthy that is, a strong candidate for the head coaching vacancy. So I It's not ideal. Now, if they do get Mike McCarthy and you bring Aaron Rodgers back, I feel like we're just going to be going in circles, the same as last year, except with a worse head coach. Because I'd much rather, at that point, have kept Mike Tomlin, even though that wasn't really an option. Tomlin left on his own accord. It is nightmare fuel here, unfortunately. And you look at kind of what their interviews are like and kind of how things are going. You can see here the top three targets are Shula, Flores, and McCarthy. That seems to be the way things are trending. And the fact that he took his name out of the sweepstakes is not super encouraging. But this is an important note, and it's what I just mentioned. If the Steelers want another year of Rodgers, a McCarthy hire could secure that. For Flores, it seemed that Pittsburgh is his best opportunity to get back into the head coaching seat, and he knows it. Lastly, the fan favorite Shula should have the upper hand on the other two. Young DC from Football Royalty. I mean, we know how good Chris Shula is, right? We're seeing it with a very low paid Los Angeles Rams defense that are now bringing themselves to the 1 win away from the Super Bowl, right? They just won the divisional championship. So it is going to be crazy. And at the end of the day, I'm a little bit worried because you look at what their virtual interview process included. Jeff Hafley, Clay Kubiak, Jesse Minter, Nate Scheelhaas, Chris Shula, Yajiro Rivero, and Anthony Weaver. And then, of course, now they'll do the in-person interviews and they'll slowly start to figure out their finalists and things like that. And the odds yesterday were Chris Shula at -150. Now Mike McCarthy has flown up to second at +150. So take with the odds what you will. And of course, if you're looking at it from Kalshi's perspective, you can look at the chart here. Mike McCarthy was as low as almost like 0%. And then over the last few hours, he's completely skyrocketed up to 33% with Brian Flores at 25. So go check out the link in the description. And it might be worth making a trade here on Mike McCarthy to win $278 on 100. But yeah. Let me know who you guys would prefer, because at the end of the day here, I'm big on Chris Shula, no matter what way you look at it. I'm going through all the reports now, kind of showing you guys what it all looks like. But I'm stuck on Shula. I'm going to be the whole time. You can see here from Chris Dockish, the more I research Chris Shula, the more I think he'd be a home run hire for the Steelers. I think his defense would be excellent right away. He would need to find an excellent OC, and he does have a ton of connections, whether that be Nate Scheelhaas or elsewhere. And it is true. If he's doing as good as he's doing with a bottom paid defense, imagine what he can do with this Steelers defense, which I know a lot of fans, hate on, and rightfully so because of how highly they're paid. They played down the stretch really, really well. And maybe TJ Watt, who's publicly spoken out about not wanting to, play for any coach other than Mike Tomlin, maybe he would be an advocate for Mike McCarthy just because of, I'm not saying they're similar, but they're both veteran coaches. I don't know. It is nightmare fuel. Now, if they bring back Aaron Rodgers, I guess that solves the quarterback position, though I think there's other ways to go about it via trade. You have the potential of Malik Willis. You have the potential of, I guess, Will Howard. I know half of you guys want that. I mean, some of you guys want that rather. Some of you guys don't down below. At the end of the day here, the truth is coming out very, very quickly. There's a media narrative and a narrative in general being pushed for Mike McCarthy to the Steelers. We'll see if it is just that, a narrative, or if it's going to come to truth. Because if it is, and it does come true, nightmare fuel for me. And I'll be pretty upset given the fact that we've seen now for the past few years mediocrity with this team. And I think Mike McCarthy would bring some more of that. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you there.